Welcome back into Hoop Talks. I'm Crina Mustafa. Today I'm joined by a very special guest, Mark Schindler. He's pretty much everywhere in basketball, covers NBA, WNBA, draft, scouting, all of that. Mark, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, so we're here to talk WNBA. The season just started. It feels like it's going by a little bit quickly, but it's been a lot of good basketball so far. Is there a team that has like stood out to you so far, either like performing above expectations or below them?
Um, I think the Sun have been one of my favorites to watch so far. Mainly, just like I'm biased because I do a lot of work covering them. But I think like it was tough losing Jonquel Jones in the offseason, especially with her asking out via trade. That team had just gone to the finals. Like that's an MVP caliber talent, so replacing somebody like that is really difficult. But I think when you look at the surrounding talent that's still there and um, what the new additions have brought, and I think I saw that coming out of the gates automatically. When the trade happened and when they made the moves in the offseason, they're like, oh, okay, I'm really interested to see this. Like I think that this can be something, and we're seeing that so far. And they still have a lot to figure out, and that's while being 3-0 already in a really like obviously they beat the Fever in game one, but then they just went 2-0 against the Mystics, who looked dominant in their first game. So yeah, I think that would be the team right now that I'm most excited by.
Yeah, so let's talk about them. They are 3-0 to start this season, and like you just mentioned, two of those wins come against the Washington Mystics, who are very much a title contender this season, as we've like previously talked about. The trio that's like kind of already existing there, like Bree Jones, Alyssa Thomas, and Duana Bonner. What have you seen from them that kind of makes you excited that this Sun team could be dangerous throughout the rest of the season?
Yeah, I was talking about this with the One of Honor after the first Mystics game, just in what the difference of the court has been for them. Like they have, I think a lot of times last year people complain about their spacing, and I get it. Like they were really good at interior passing and getting the ball to the post in a variety of ways, but now. And it's something Alyssa Thomas talked about yesterday too. She's like, we don't just have to play one way. We have a lot of different ways we can play, and it kind of makes it harder for teams to guard us because you have to respect our weak side. So like last year, if there was a weak side exchange or something like that, just like any kind of off ball movement in a set, teams didn't really care because the Sun didn't have the personnel to make the defense care about it. They were still going to sell out to guard the post and try and shut things down in the interior. Now they do. Like they have a lot of versatility. They have a lot of players who can make things happen on the perimeter. And that just makes things with Alyssa and Bree and Dewana hit that much differently. So that's been extremely exciting to watch so far.
Yeah, that is something that they've talked about that I've noticed where they're like, we are finding new ways to play now. But I think because you still have that like core together who know how to play with each other, that also helps with implementing like different ways to play. Um, Outside of those three, because obviously outside of them, and they still have like Natisha Heidemann, but the Sun looks pretty different now. So who has been your favorite acquisition in the offseason and why?
Tip Hayes for sure. She is just somebody who has long been underrated in my opinion. Like she's just a really, really good basketball player. She's an all-star level talent. Just health has been her biggest issue. So I think if she can stay healthy this year, I think that this team is a very real contender. What she brings is somebody who it can be a three-level scorer who can really get into the paint and kick the ball out and move it around. Like I think that's what's like, even with her not necessarily lighting it up efficiency wise as a scorer so far, she's been so good at just opening up an offense in a way that they didn't have a guard or wing who could do that last year. As good as Jasmine Thomas has been throughout her career, like obviously she missed last year, but just in general, like they've never had a player like that in the existence of this group over the last 4 or 5 years. So what she's brought has been really fun. And even like defensively too, part of what's been so fun, like with this team, like Stephanie White mentioned this, the head coach of the Suns, Stephanie White mentioned this the other game. Like she likes a lot of the process and ideas, but it's still like very sloppy from them right now. Like they're still trying to figure out a lot of making the right reads because now their offense is very read based instead of being as set heavy as it was the last couple of years. So they're still learning a lot of new kinks in the offense, and when they already are hitting some of the levels they're hitting, while having that defensive floor that they've built in, that's really good stuff to see.
And it's nice to, like, get those wins while you're still figuring stuff out because you'd much rather be up 3-0 and still working on getting even better, than being down maybe like
Mhm.
0-3. But my favorite acquisition, in case anybody cares, is Beck
Of
Allen
course it is.
because of course it is. You already knew that was coming. I'm just really happy also just to see her be healthy again because, like, what she
Mhm.
went through last year, you never want that, and she's an exciting player. I mean, I talked about this like 3 times already, but that 3 she hit, I think it was in their second game of the season. That 3 she had to kind of put them up over the Mystics. Like, I love that it happened for her. So she's been my favorite acquisition, of course. Wherever Beck Allen goes, I go. So the Connecticut Sun have, like, been another reason for me to watch because of her. But let's move on to your WNBA coverage because, like I mentioned earlier, you are kind of, like, everywhere, but I wanna talk specifically about your podcast they've got now, which is kind of focused on, like, highlighting the stories in women's basketball. Can you talk a little bit about how that podcast came about and, like, what your goal is with it?
Yeah, I think mainly I just wanted to create something that I felt like there wasn't really no disrespect to people who have like there are some like really good podcasts covering the WNBA and women's basketball at large, don't get me wrong, but I felt like the stuff that I most wanted to see or hear about wasn't there. So I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna create my own thing. I want to do like high level analysis, but also I really just want to have conversations with people. Like I feel like that is one of the things that's missing to me is just having a lot of high level, or just saying high level sounds conceited. I don't mean that my own stuff is high level, but I mean just like having a lot of really cool in-depth conversations about, how somebody got somewhere in basketball or, what they're working on and, just getting to know them as people too through talking about the game and how they see it. I wanted to see more of that. So I decided to start doing it myself and I've really enjoyed it. And yeah, I think it's going in a pretty good direction.
Do you have, like, a favorite episode or person that you've spoken with so far?
Uh, Probably I did a podcast with Oregon assistant Sadie Edwards. She worked for the Liberty last year as one of their video coordinators and did a lot of player development stuff with them too. Former player, she was a 5-star, went to UConn, ended up transferring to USC and had a really good career. Um, I'm biased because she's a good friend of mine, but that's one of my favorite conversations I've ever had in any kind of medium covering sports. So I definitely would recommend that one. And it's still it's kind of an evergreen thing. Like that's regardless, I think it's going to hit the same whenever you listen to it.
Yeah, I'll make sure to link the podcast, but, like, can you tell people what to expect moving forward with the pod and, like, some of your other work that you wanna promote?
Yeah, I think as far as what I'm doing right now, like I did a pod yesterday, just kind of on opening weekend thoughts. So I did like the first half was just kind of me going over a lot of my own thoughts and stuff on like around half the league probably. And then I brought on Stephen Prejean, who is a good friend of mine who covers the Chicago Sky. And then we did like a half-hour breakdown for the rest of the pod, just talking about their 2-0 start, who's popping, why things are working, what the impressions have been from media availability and being around the team. And I think it's going to kind of be like that in that same vein moving forward, like doing a lot of sort of like not quite like low post, but I think sort of in that same vein of like I want to really dive into things, with my own thoughts, but also then bring on somebody who is, even more boots on the ground than I am in a certain area. Because I, like you mentioned, I am kind of all over the place. I try and do this nationally. Um, so yeah, just continuing to do that, and then I'll also be doing like I mean I sent out a bunch of emails this last day or two about having some more player, coach, et cetera interviews on the pod too. So it's going to be kind of a mismatch of everything. Anything women's basketball is on the way.
Okay, well, we love to hear it. Last thing, plug where people can find you. Then also, you gotta subscribe to Mark's Patreon. I will put that in there, but where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at mg_Schindler. It's the same over on Instagram as well, trying to grow that over there. Um, but yeah, I think that, that's the best place to find me. I'm always tweeting, I'm always putting my workout up there, always active. So yeah, no, again, I appreciate you having me on.
Of course. Thanks so much for joining me. We're gonna continue to cover the WNBA season as it continues, and this has been Hoop Talks.